The alien ship ascended into Earth's atmosphere, leaving the ruins behind. As they climbed higher, the team sat in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. The weight of what they had experienced pressed heavily on them, but there was also a sense of purpose, a shared understanding that their lives had been changed forever. Humanity's legacy wasn't just a collection of knowledge. It was a call to action, a reminder of what could be achieved when curiosity and compassion worked hand in hand. Jonah Cale stared out the viewport, his arms crossed tightly over his chest. He had always prided himself on his intellect, on being part of a species he believed superior to all others. But now, for the first time, he felt small, not because humanity had surpassed him, but because their failures mirrored his own arrogance. They had reached for greatness without considering the cost, and in doing so, they had nearly destroyed themselves. It was a lesson Jonah knew he couldn't ignore. Lyra Solon sat nearby, her tablet resting on her lap. She scrolled through notes she had taken during their time in the archive, marveling at the depth of human creativity. From intricate works of art to groundbreaking scientific discoveries, humanity had proven itself capable of brilliance. Yet it was their ability to reflect, to question their actions and strive for improvement, that truly struck her. They weren't perfect, she murmured aloud, almost to herself, but maybe that's why they mattered. Vera Cade leaned back in her chair, her mind replaying the challenges they had faced. Each puzzle, each moral dilemma, had forced her to think differently, to consider perspectives she might otherwise have dismissed. She realized now that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their achievements. It was their willingness to keep trying, even when the odds were against them. That resilience inspired her, and she vowed to carry it with her wherever she went. Nyla Tren watched her teammates quietly, sensing the shift in their attitudes. Gone was the dismissive skepticism they had arrived with. In its place was a newfound respect for humanity, for one another, and for the responsibility they now carried. She knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Sharing humanity's knowledge with their people would require patience, diplomacy, and courage. But as she glanced at Vara, who smiled faintly despite the gravity of their task, Nyla felt hopeful. Back home, the Xirans would face questions about their journey. Some would doubt their findings, dismissing humanity as irrelevant. Others might see only the potential for power, eager to exploit the Archive's secrets for personal gain. But the team had changed. They understood now that true progress came not from domination, but from cooperation. If they handled this carefully, they could inspire their people to think differently, to dream bigger. As the ship entered the vastness of space, Jonah finally spoke. His voice was quieter than usual, tinged with humility. We've been wrong about a lot of things. About humans. About ourselves. This isn't just knowledge we're bringing back. It's a chance to do better, to learn from their mistakes, and build something stronger. Vera nodded. And we can't do it alone. We'll need everyone's help. Scientists, leaders, even ordinary people. If we work together, we can honor what humanity gave us. For the remainder of the journey, the team discussed how best to share humanity's legacy. They agreed to present it not as a trophy of conquest, but as a gift, a reminder that greatness required both ambition and accountability. By the time they reached Syra, they had crafted a plan, one rooted in the lessons they had learned. When the ship touched down on their home planet, the team stepped out with resolve in their hearts. They knew the path ahead would be difficult, filled with challenges and resistance, but they also knew they weren't alone. Humanity's story was now part of theirs, a beacon of hope guiding them toward a brighter future. Far away, Earth remained silent, its ruins hidden beneath layers of dust. Yet deep within those ancient structures, HFY waited patiently, ready to guide the next visitors who dared to seek answers among the stars. The team stood before the glowing pedestal, its light casting soft shadows across their faces. The symbol etched into its surface seemed to pulse with a life of its own, drawing them closer. Vera reached out hesitantly, her fingers brushing against the engraving. Instantly, The room shifted around them. The walls dissolved into a vast expanse of stars, and the floor beneath their feet became translucent, revealing an endless void below. They were no longer in the ruins. They had entered the heart of the archive. ECHO7's voice resonated through the space, steady and unwavering. You have reached the core. Here lies the essence of humanity's knowledge, their dreams, their failures, and their hopes for the future. But beware, this is not merely a repository of information. It is also a guardian. A guardian? Jonah asked, his tone sharp but laced with unease. What exactly are you protecting? Humanity's legacy, ECHO7 replied. And the potential it holds. Not all who seek this place come with good intentions. Some wish to exploit what they find here, while others seek only destruction. You must prove yourselves worthy stewards of this knowledge. Vera glanced at her teammates, sensing their tension. She knew this was the moment that would define them, not just as individuals, but as a group. What do we need to do? She asked, her voice steady despite the weight of the situation. The core will present you with one final challenge, ECHO7 explained. It will test your ability to make choices that align with the values humanity held dear. Choose wisely, for the consequences of your actions will ripple far beyond this chamber. Before anyone could respond, the pedestal split open, revealing a small orb suspended in midair. It glowed faintly, its light shifting between warm hues of gold and blue. As the team approached, the orb released a series of holographic projections, each depicting a moral dilemma. The scenarios unfolded before their eyes, forcing them to confront difficult decisions. The first projection showed a planet on the brink of collapse. Its resources were nearly depleted, and its people faced starvation. A nearby species offered aid, but at a cost. In exchange, the struggling planet would have to surrender its independence and become part of the other species' empire. The question appeared in bold letters above the scene. Accept help and lose freedom, or refuse and risk extinction. Jonah frowned, shaking his head. This is ridiculous. Strength comes from self-reliance. They should fight for themselves instead of bowing to another power. But if they refuse, millions could die, Lyra countered. Her voice was soft but firm. Sometimes survival means making sacrifices. Isn't that better than losing everything? Nyla stepped forward, her brow furrowed. There has to be another way. Can't they negotiate terms that benefit both sides? Cooperation doesn't always mean domination. Vera listened carefully, weighing each perspective. Finally, she spoke. Maybe the answer isn't about choosing one extreme over the other. Maybe it's about finding balance, accepting help without losing dignity. Her words hung in the air as the projection shifted to the next scenario. This time, it showed a scientist working on a powerful weapon capable of ending wars, but at the cost of countless innocent lives. Should the weapon be used to bring peace or destroyed to prevent further suffering? The debates grew heated as the team wrestled with each decision. Jonah argued for strength and pragmatism, while Lyra emphasized compassion and preservation. Nyla sought compromise, and Vera tried to see the bigger picture, considering long-term consequences over short-term gains. Through it all, ECHO7 observed silently, analyzing their responses. When the final projection faded, the AI spoke again. You have shown growth. Each of you has contributed something valuable. Logic, empathy, creativity, and leadership. Together, you embody the qualities necessary to carry humanity's legacy forward. The orb brightened, its glow enveloping the team. For a moment, they felt connected, not just to each other, but to the countless beings who had shaped the galaxy before them. When the light dimmed, they found themselves back in the chamber, the pedestal now silent and still. You have passed, ECHO7 declared. But remember, knowledge is a gift, not a weapon. Use it wisely. As the team absorbed the enormity of what they had achieved, they realized this wasn't the end. It was a beginning. Humanity's legacy was now theirs to protect, and the choices they made moving forward would shape not only their own future but the futures of countless others. The team moved deeper into the facility, their steps quieter now, weighed down by the lessons they had learned. The air seemed heavier, charged with an energy that made their skin tingle. They entered a new chamber, its walls lined with rows of glowing panels. Each panel displayed fragments of human history, moments of triumph and tragedy, innovation and destruction. At the center of the room stood a pedestal, its surface etched with intricate patterns that pulsed faintly with light. ECH-07's voice filled the space, calm but firm. This is the final trial. It will test not only your ability to solve problems, but also your willingness to embrace humility. Pass this, and you will gain unrestricted access to humanity's archive. Fail, and you will leave this place empty-handed or worse. Jonah clenched his fists, his frustration bubbling to the surface. Enough of these games, he snapped. We've proven ourselves enough. What more do you want from us? The question is not what I want, ECH-07 replied. It is what you are willing to give. Humanity entrusted me with their legacy because they understood the importance of balance. Progress without responsibility leads to ruin. Will you honor that trust, or will you repeat their mistakes? Vera stepped forward, her determination unwavering. She glanced at her teammates, sensing their hesitation. Let's focus, she urged. We can do this if we work together. The AI nodded in approval. Very well. Your task is simple. Restore balance to the system before you. This chamber represents the delicate equilibrium humanity sought to maintain. Disrupt it, and the consequences will be severe. As ECH-07 finished speaking, the panels along the walls began to flicker erratically. Streams of data flowed across them, too fast for the team to process. In the center of the room, holographic projections sprang to life, depicting scenarios of imbalance, overpopulation, environmental collapse, and resource depletion. The images shifted rapidly, overwhelming the senses. Jonah groaned, rubbing his temples. This is impossible. How are we supposed to fix something we don't even understand? By working together, Vera insisted. She turned to Lyra. You're good with patterns. Can you analyze the data streams and find a rhythm? Lyra hesitated but nodded. She moved to one of the panels, her fingers dancing over the controls as she studied the information. After a moment, she called out, There's a sequence here, a cycle of growth and decay. If we can stabilize it, we might regain control. Nyla joined her, focusing on another panel. I see it too. But it's not just about numbers. These projections are showing cause and effect. Every action has a reaction. Jonah rolled his eyes but reluctantly stepped up to help. He wasn't used to collaboration, but pride alone wouldn't get them through this. Together, the team worked to identify key points in the system where adjustments could be made. Vera coordinated their efforts, guiding each person to focus on different aspects of the problem. Slowly, the chaos began to subside. The flickering panels stabilized, and the holographic projections shifted to show scenes of harmony, balanced ecosystems, sustainable cities, and cooperative societies. The hum of energy in the room softened, replaced by a steady, calming pulse. You have done well, ECH-07 said, its tone approving. You recognize the importance of unity and foresight. These are qualities humanity valued deeply, even in their darkest moments. Jonah let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. For the first time, he felt a flicker of respect, not just for the humans who had built this place, but for his own team. So, what happens now? He asked, his voice quieter than usual. Now, ECH-07 replied, you may proceed to the heart of the archive. There you will find answers to questions you have yet to ask, and perhaps ones you never thought to consider. The pedestal in the center of the room lit up brightly, revealing a final symbol engraved into its surface. It resembled the cube Vera had discovered earlier, completing a circle that connected all they had experienced so far. As the team gathered around it, they realized the journey ahead would demand even more of them, not just their minds, but their hearts. For the first time, they truly understood the weight of humanity's legacy and the responsibility that came with carrying it forward. The next challenge awaited the team in a chamber unlike any they had seen before. The walls shimmered with light, creating an endless illusion of stars and galaxies stretching far beyond their reach. In the center of the room floated a massive sphere, its surface covered in shifting patterns that resembled constellations. HFY-7's voice echoed softly, guiding them forward. "This is the Nexus," the AI explained. "It represents humanity's understanding of the universe and their place within it. To proceed, you must demonstrate not only knowledge but also empathy, the ability to see beyond your own perspective." Jonah frowned, crossing his arms over his chest. "Empathy? What does that have to do with intelligence?" "Everything," HFY-7 replied calmly. "True wisdom comes from understanding others, not just their strengths, but their struggles. Humanity learned this lesson too late. Will you repeat their mistakes, or will you rise above them?" Before anyone could respond, the sphere began to change. Images appeared on its surface, depicting scenes from different planets and species across the galaxy. Some showed peaceful moments, aliens working together to build cities or explore new worlds. Others revealed conflict, destruction, and loss. The team watched silently, each member processing what they saw in their own way. Vera was the first to step forward, her eyes fixed on the sphere. She reached out hesitantly, her fingers brushing against its glowing surface. Instantly, she felt a surge of emotions, not her own, but those of countless beings who had lived and died among the stars. Pain, hope, fear, joy. It all rushed through her mind like a torrent. She stumbled back, overwhelmed but determined to understand. What is this?" she asked, her voice trembling. "This is the collective memory of those who came before you," HFY-7 answered. "Each image holds a story, a lesson. Your task is to choose one and interpret its meaning." Lyra moved closer, studying the shifting images carefully. One caught her attention, a group of aliens standing on a barren planet, planting seeds in the cracked soil. Their faces were tired but hopeful, their actions driven by a shared goal. Lyra pointed to the scene. "This one," she said firmly. "What does it mean?" "It speaks of resilience," HFY-7 replied. "Even in the face of despair, these beings chose to create rather than destroy. They understood that life requires effort, patience, and cooperation. Do you see the value in their choice?" Lyra nodded slowly, her expression softening. For the first time, she realized how much she had underestimated other species, including humans. "I think I do," she admitted quietly. Jonah watched the exchange with growing unease. He didn't trust emotions. They seemed messy and unpredictable. But as he studied the sphere, one image caught his eye. A lone alien standing on a cliff, staring at a distant star. Its posture was defiant, almost proud. Yet there was a sadness in its gaze that struck a chord deep within him. "That one," he said abruptly, pointing to the image. "Explain it." HFY-7 paused before responding. "It represents isolation, the burden of believing oneself superior to others. This being sought greatness alone, rejecting help even when it was offered. In the end, its pride led to its downfall." Jonah stiffened, the words hitting closer to home than he cared to admit. He opened his mouth to argue but stopped himself, unsure of what to say. For once, his usual confidence wavered. Nyla stepped forward next, drawn to an image of two alien children playing near a river. Their laughter echoed faintly, filling the room with warmth. "This one," she said softly. "What does it teach us?" "It reminds us of innocence and connection," HFY-7 explained. "No matter how advanced a species becomes, the simplest joys often hold the greatest truths. Humanity cherished these moments, even as they reached for the stars." As the team reflected on the lessons, Vera noticed something strange. The sphere began to dim, its light fading until only a single image remained, a human figure holding a small plant in their hands. The message was clear: life, no matter how fragile, deserved care and respect. You have passed this trial, HFY announced. But remember, knowledge without compassion is meaningless. Carry these lessons with you as you continue. The group exchanged glances, their earlier skepticism replaced by a newfound sense of purpose. They still had much to learn, but for the first time, they understood that humanity's legacy wasn't just about what they had built. It was about how they had tried to connect with the world around them. And perhaps in some small way, the Xyrans were beginning to do the same. Is this part of their language? She asked, pointing to the markings. Or is it some kind of code? It is both, HFY answered. These symbols represent concepts too complex for simple words. Humanity sought to express ideas that transcended spoken language, a universal form of communication. Nyla, who had been quietly observing, finally spoke up. If humans were this advanced, why didn't they leave behind more evidence? Why bury all of this in ruins? Because they knew the risks of leaving such power unchecked, HFY explained. This facility was designed to protect their legacy until the right moment, and the right species, came along. You are not the first to discover it, nor will you be the last. Joma stopped pacing and faced the AI. And what happens if we fail your tests? What then? The consequences depend on the severity of your failures, HFY replied. Some intruders have been denied access and sent away. Others were removed as threats. A tense silence settled over the group. Vera swallowed hard, realizing the gravity of their situation. She had been so focused on uncovering the truth that she hadn't considered the dangers. Now, with HFY's warning hanging in the air, she understood that their survival depended on proving themselves, not just as intelligent beings, but as responsible ones. Determined to succeed, Vera turned to her teammates. We need to work together. These challenges aren't just about solving puzzles. They're about showing we can think beyond ourselves. Joma hesitated, his pride warring with his instinct for self-preservation. Finally, he nodded curtly. Fine, but if this is another waste of time. It's not, Vera interrupted firmly. Trust me. With renewed resolve, the team prepared to face the next set of trials. As they stepped deeper into the facility, guided by HFY's steady voice, they began to realize that humanity's greatest legacy wasn't their technology or their achievements. It was the reminder that even the smallest acts of curiosity and cooperation could shape the future. Vera led the way into the next chamber, her heart pounding with a mix of excitement and nervousness. The room was vast, its walls lined with screens that displayed shifting images of Earth's history, its landscapes, cultures, and achievements. In the center stood a glowing pedestal, atop which rested a holographic globe. HFY's voice echoed through the space, calm yet commanding. This is the archive, the AI explained. It contains the collective knowledge of humanity, science, art, philosophy, and more. But access is granted only to those who prove themselves worthy. Your actions thus far have shown potential, but there is still much to evaluate. Jonah stepped forward, his usual arrogance tempered by the weight of what he had seen. Enough with the tests, he said, though his tone lacked its earlier bite. If humans were so advanced, why did they fail? What's the point of guarding their legacy if they couldn't even save themselves? HFY paused before responding. Humanity's downfall was not due to a lack of intelligence or creativity. It was their inability to balance progress with responsibility. They reached for the stars but ignored the consequences of their actions. This archive exists not as a monument to their failure, but as a lesson for those who come after them. Lyra glanced at the screens, her eyes drawn to scenes of human innovation. Towering skyscrapers, intricate machinery, and vibrant works of art. She felt a pang of guilt for having dismissed humanity so easily. "What kind of lesson are you trying to teach us?" she asked quietly. "The lesson of humility," HFY replied. "To value knowledge without exploiting it. To respect the delicate balance between ambition and caution. And above all, to recognize the worth of other species, not as inferior beings, but as equals capable of greatness." As the AI spoke, Vera approached the pedestal and placed her hand on the holographic globe. Instantly, the room transformed. The walls shifted, displaying new images, maps of distant galaxies, designs for spacecraft, and records of humanity's attempts to explore beyond their own planet. Vera gasped, overwhelmed by the scope of what she was seeing. "They ventured into space," she whispered, her voice filled with awe. "They dreamed of reaching other worlds, just like us." Jonah frowned, his skepticism returning. Dreams don't mean success. Clearly, they didn't get very far. "That is where you are wrong," HFY interjected. "Humans achieved interstellar travel long before their decline. Some of their vessels remain adrift in the cosmos, carrying messages of peace and hope. Others reached habitable planets, seeding new beginnings. Their reach extended far beyond what you see here." The team fell silent, absorbing the revelation. Even Jonah seemed shaken, though he tried to hide it. He turned away, pacing the room as if searching for flaws in the AI's claims. Lyra, however, moved closer to the screens, studying the details with growing fascination. She noticed something unusual, a series of symbols that resembled those on the cube Vera had discovered. As the others continued their tests, Nyla Tren watched from the sidelines, having joined the group after hearing the commotion. She observed their struggles and successes, her instincts telling her there was more to these trials than met the eye. When Vara finished her final task, HFY spoke again. "You have demonstrated adaptability and insight. You may proceed further." Jonah glared at Vera, his frustration evident. "Why her? What makes her so special?" "She sees beyond arrogance," HFY replied simply. "That is a quality worth rewarding." With no choice but to follow, the team pressed onward, their journey becoming less about proving superiority and more about confronting humility. For the first time, they began to wonder if humanity's greatest achievement wasn't their technology, but their ability to dream, create, and endure against all odds. The deeper the alien team ventured into the awakened facility, the more their understanding of humanity began to shift. HFY guided them through a series of chambers, each one revealing new layers of human ingenuity. Holographic displays flickered to life, showing images of Earth's past, vast cities filled with towering buildings, machines that soared through the skies, and devices capable of communicating across vast distances. The Xirans watched in stunned silence, their previous assumptions crumbling with every step. Jonah Kale tried to maintain his composure, but it was clear he was struggling. His arms were crossed tightly over his chest, and his jaw clenched as HFY explained the purpose of the facility. This complex was designed not only to preserve knowledge, but also to serve as a guardian, the AI said calmly. It protects humanity's legacy while ensuring that any species who discovers it proves. Her heart raced as she stepped inside, her eyes wide with wonder. This wasn't just a storage room, it was some kind of command center. Screens lit up one by one, displaying streams of information too complex for her to understand. In the center of the chamber stood a large console, its surface covered in buttons and levers. Hesitant but curious, Vera reached out and touched one of the controls. Instantly, the entire facility came alive. Lights blinked on throughout the ruins, casting an eerie glow over the landscape. Machines roared to life, gears grinding and circuits humming as dormant systems rebooted. Alarms blared softly, echoing through the halls. Vera froze, realizing she had triggered something far bigger than she anticipated. Panic set in as she tried to shut it down, pressing random buttons in a desperate attempt to reverse the process. Back at the ship, the sudden noise woke the others. Jonah stormed outside, his face twisted with anger. "What's going on?" he demanded, scanning the horizon. His eyes widened as he saw the ruins illuminated, glowing like a beacon in the darkness. Who did this? Lyra followed close behind, equally shocked. It wasn't me, she said quickly, glancing at Vara, who had just emerged from the shadows. Was it you? Vera hesitated, guilt written all over her face. I didn't mean to, she stammered. I found something. A cube, and it activated part of the facility. I thought it might be important. You thought? Jonah snapped, his voice rising. You risked activating unknown technology without consulting anyone. Do you have any idea how dangerous that is? Before Vara could respond, a new sound echoed through the ruins, a deep, resonant voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Welcome, it said calmly, in flawless Tehran. I am ECH07, an artificial intelligence created by humanity to preserve knowledge and safeguard their legacy. The team fell silent, stunned by the revelation. Jonah frowned, his skepticism returning. Artificial intelligence, from humans? Impossible. They weren't capable of such sophistication. ECH07's tone remained calm but firm. You underestimate them. Humanity achieved greatness before their decline. Their ingenuity is evident in every system you see here. Would you like to learn more? Jonah opened his mouth to argue, but Lyra interrupted. Maybe we should listen, she suggested cautiously. If this AI can provide evidence of human advancement, it might explain why we're here. For once, Jonah didn't protest. Reluctantly, the team followed ECH07's instructions, stepping deeper into the awakened facility. As they explored, the AI guided them through chambers filled with holographic displays, ancient records, and advanced machinery. Each discovery chipped away at their preconceived notions, forcing them to confront the truth. Humanity had been far more intelligent and innovative than they had ever imagined. Vera watched silently, a small smile tugging at her lips. She had been right all along. But even as the others began to accept the evidence before them, she couldn't help but wonder, what else was hidden within these ruins? And what would happen if they pushed too far? That evening, as the alien team gathered back at their ship to review the day's findings, Vera kept her discovery hidden. The cube was safely tucked away in her bag, its secrets locked inside for now. She knew she couldn't trust Jonah or Lyra with what she had found. Jonah's arrogance would only lead him to mock her, and Lyra, though quieter, wouldn't dare go against their captain. Instead, Vera waited patiently, pretending to focus on cataloging fragments of pottery and rusted metal scraps. Jonah paced near the workstation, his irritation growing with each passing moment. This is a complete waste of resources, he muttered, glaring at the pile of broken artifacts they had collected. We've been here for 2 days, and all we found is junk. Primitive tools, crumbling walls, and meaningless symbols. Humans were clearly as simple as we assumed. Lyra nodded absently, scrolling through scans on her tablet. There's nothing here that suggests any kind of advanced technology, she agreed. Even their ruins are poorly constructed. It's no wonder they failed as a species. Vera clenched her fists under the table but said nothing. She wanted to argue, to tell them about the cube and the holographic data it had projected, but she held her tongue. For now, silence was safer. She glanced at the bag resting by her feet, wondering when she'd get the chance to study the cube further. Whatever it wasn't primitive, and she intended to prove it. Later that night, after most of the team had gone to bed, Vera slipped out of the ship with the cube in hand. The ruins were eerily quiet under the starlit sky, the wind whispering through the broken structures. She made her way back to the section where she had found the object earlier, hoping to uncover more clues. The wall with the intricate carvings still stood, its patterns glowing faintly in the moonlight. Kneeling down, Vera placed the cube against the markings, aligning its edges with the grooves. To her surprise, the cube clicked into place, fitting perfectly as if it had been designed for this exact spot. A low hum filled the air, vibrating through the ground beneath her. Startled, Vera stepped back, watching as the wall began to shift. Panels slid open, revealing the hidden chamber behind it. Inside, lights flickered to life, illuminating rows of strange devices and control panels covered in unfamiliar symbols. Curious, Vera ran her fingers over the carvings, feeling the grooves beneath her gloves. They weren't random. They formed patterns, sequences that repeated in a way that felt deliberate. She pulled out her scanner again, running it over the wall. To her surprise, the device picked up faint traces of energy, far weaker than anything they had detected so far, but consistent. Her heart raced as she realized this area might actually be important. As she worked, her foot kicked something solid half buried in the dirt. Bending down, she brushed away the debris to reveal a small metallic cube. It was no bigger than her palm, its surface smooth and slightly reflective. Intrigued, she picked it up and examined it closely. At first glance, it looked ordinary, but when she turned it over, she noticed tiny markings along one edge, similar to the ones on the wall. Could this be some kind of key? She whispered to herself. Back at the central structure, Jonah and Lyra were growing increasingly frustrated. The building was a maze of empty rooms and collapsed ceilings, offering little insight into human ingenuity. Jonah muttered under his breath, complaining about how pointless the entire expedition was. Lyra tried to stay focused, snapping photos and jotting down notes, but even she struggled to find anything worth documenting. Meanwhile, Vera carried the cube back to her workstation, eager to examine it further. She placed it on a portable analysis table and activated her tools. At first, nothing happened. The cube remained inert, giving no indication of its purpose. But then, as Vera adjusted the settings on her equipment, the cube began to hum softly. Startled, she stepped back, watching as the object vibrated gently before emitting a soft glow. Suddenly, a beam of light shot upward from the cube, projecting a holographic display into the air. Streams of data filled the space around her. Complex equations, diagrams, and images that shifted and changed too quickly for her to fully comprehend. Vera's breath caught in her throat. This wasn't primitive technology. It was advanced, far beyond anything she had imagined humans capable of. Her excitement was short-lived, however. Realizing the implications of her discovery, she quickly turned off the cube and hid it in her bag. If Jonah found out, he would ridicule her, or worse, confiscate it. For now, she needed to keep this secret. Whatever the cube was, it held answers, and possibly dangers, that the rest of the team wasn't ready to face. Unbeknownst to Vera, the activation of the cube had triggered something deeper within the ruins. Somewhere below the surface, ancient systems stirred, waking from centuries of dormancy. The facility hummed faintly, gears turning and circuits lighting up as if responding to a long-forgotten call. It wouldn't be long before the entire site came alive, revealing secrets that could change everything the Tyrants thought they knew about humanity. The next morning, the alien team returned to the ruins, their boots crunching against the dry, cracked ground. The air was cooler now, carrying a faint scent of earth and decay. Jonah Cale led the group with his usual confidence, though there was an edge of impatience in his movements. He had already decided that this mission was a waste of time, and every moment spent here only deepened his frustration. Lyra Solon walked beside him, her scanner in hand, occasionally glancing at the readings but finding nothing remarkable. Vera Cade, however, moved more slowly. Her eyes darted from one structure to another, taking in every detail. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something important. While the others dismissed the ruins as primitive and useless, Vera saw patterns, subtle hints of design that hinted at purpose. She knelt near a pile of rubble, brushing away layers of dirt to reveal a strange marking etched into a piece of metal. It wasn't like anything she'd seen before, neither in Saran technology, nor in the few human artifacts they had studied. "What are you doing?" Jonah's voice cut through the quiet, sharp and annoyed. He stopped several feet away, crossing his arms over his chest. "We don't have time for distractions. I think this might be significant." Vara replied, holding up the fragment. The symbol on it was intricate, almost artistic, yet it seemed to follow a logical sequence. It could be part of a larger system. Jonah rolled his eyes. A larger system? Don't be ridiculous. Humans barely understood basic engineering. This is probably just decoration. He turned to Lyra. Tell her we're wasting our time. Lyra hesitated, glancing between Jonah and Vara. She wanted to agree with Jonah. It was easier to dismiss everything as meaningless, but something about Vara's discovery gave her pause. Still, she nodded reluctantly. She's right, Vara. We should focus on areas with clearer signs of activity. Vara sighed, but didn't argue. Instead, she slipped the fragment into her bag and continued exploring. As the day wore on, the team split up to cover more ground. Jonah and Lyra headed toward what appeared to be the central structure, while Vara wandered off on her own. She found herself drawn to a section of the ruins that seemed untouched by time. The walls here were smoother, less worn, and strange symbols covered them in neat rows. The alien ship descended slowly through Earth's atmosphere, its sleek silver surface gleaming under the pale sunlight. Captain Jonah Cale stood at the helm, his sharp eyes scanning the planet below with a mix of curiosity and disdain. To him, Earth was nothing more than a dusty rock, long abandoned by its creators. The Xerens, his people, had been exploring the galaxy for centuries, and they prided themselves on their advanced knowledge and technology. Humanity, or what little remained of it in ruins like these, was seen as insignificant, a primitive species that had failed to leave any lasting mark. Jonah adjusted his gloves as he prepared to lead the expedition team onto the surface. Beside him, Lyra Solon checked her equipment one last time. She was quieter than most of the crew, but equally dismissive of humanity's achievements. Both she and Jonah believed this mission would be a waste of time, but orders were orders. Their leader back on Xyra had insisted they investigate the ancient structures scattered across Earth's barren landscapes. Rumors suggested they might hold remnants of human technology, though no one expected much. The landing site was near a cluster of crumbling buildings half buried in sand. As the team stepped out of the ship, the air felt heavy, almost oppressive. The sky above was overcast, casting long shadows over the ruins. The structures were unlike anything the Xyrans typically encountered during their explorations. They weren't sleek or metallic. Instead, they were made of stone and concrete, cracked and weathered by time. Strange symbols decorated some of the walls, faded but still visible. "This is it," Jonah muttered, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "These are the great achievements of humanity. A pile of rocks." Lyra nodded in agreement. "It's hard to believe anyone could call this progress," she said, running a scanner over the nearest wall. The device beeped softly, indicating minimal energy readings. Nothing significant enough to warrant further investigation, according to their instruments. One of the younger members of the team, Varicade, lingered near the entrance of a large structure. Her brow furrowed as she studied the carvings etched into the doorway. Unlike her colleagues, she seemed hesitant to dismiss the place so quickly. There was something about the symmetry of the designs, the precision of the lines, that hinted at intelligence beyond mere decoration. But when she mentioned it to Jonah, he laughed. "Symmetry doesn't mean sophistication," he said, brushing past her. "If humans were truly capable of greatness, they wouldn't have destroyed themselves." Vara frowned, but didn't argue. She knew better than to challenge Jonah directly. Still, as the team moved deeper into the ruins, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more here than met the eye. Every step revealed new details. Fragments of machinery embedded in the walls, faint traces of wiring hidden beneath layers of dust, and strange patterns that seemed almost mathematical in nature. Back on the ship, Nyla Tren monitored the team's progress from the safety of the control room. As the communications officer, her job was to stay alert for any signs of danger. But as she watched the live feed from the team's cameras, she noticed something odd. Certain areas of the ruins emitted faint pulses of energy, too weak to register on standard scanners, but present nonetheless. When she mentioned it to Jonah via comms, he dismissed her concerns. "There's nothing here worth worrying about," he replied curtly. "Focus on maintaining the connection, and let us handle the rest." Nyla sighed and leaned back in her chair. Something about the ruins unsettled her, though she couldn't quite put her finger on why. Maybe it was the silence, the way the wind seemed to carry whispers of a forgotten past. Or maybe it was the look in Vera's eyes whenever she paused to examine something closer. Whatever it was, Nyla couldn't shake the feeling that the ruins held secrets far greater than anyone realized. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the ruins in shadow, the team continued their work. They photographed the structures, collected samples, and recorded data. But despite their efforts, none of them noticed the faint glow emanating from a small object buried deep within the rubble. It pulsed steadily, almost imperceptibly, waiting for someone to find it and awaken what lay dormant beneath the surface.